in anthropology, in history, and in the natural sciences, particularly ecology. What we try to do is to construct a theoretical framework which can give us insights that will allow us to reconstruct our relationship with nature, to really reharmonize people and nature. So that social ecology really, from its conception, had the intent of creating a body of ideas that could help guide actions. And the notion of praxis, the combination of theory and practice, is central to social ecology. It's not simply an academic discipline or an abstract set of ideas. It's rather a set of ideas that are intended to be able to give us some guidelines that we can use acting on the real world in order to transform it. And in that sense, it is transformative and it is a revolutionary perspective, because social ecology questions the underlying structures of our society, the underlying political and economic relationships that really shape our society and shape our relationship with the rest of nature. So that all by way of background. When we look at social ecology and we look at the way social ecology uses the past, it really provides us with a philosophical perspective. And that philosophical perspective draws on three different aspects of philosophy. It involves an epistemology, which of course is a way of knowing, a way of defining language that allows us to have a common basis of understanding for moving forward. It then tries to develop an ethics, which in social ecology's case, the ethical framework is derived from our understanding and interpretation of nature itself. And then out of the ethics grows a politics. So there's a logic that flows through all of this. It's not just a pastiche of ideas, but rather a set of ideas of philosophy that tries to build logically and rationally from one understanding to the next. In terms of epistemology, the central question that social ecology asks is, what is nature? And certainly nature is defined in many different ways, in many different cultures, in many different historical periods, but in contemporary society, primarily when we talk about nature, when we're not using it in a technical sense, people talk about it in a from a dualistic perspective, where we see people here, and nature is something which is external. Nature is everything out there. It's grass, it's trees, it's oceans, it's atmosphere, but somehow people are seen as distinct from nature, separate from nature. Another one of the dominant ways that nature is thought about, primarily from the perspective of Eastern philosophy, is much more unified. It sees everything as nature, but often an undifferentiated everything. Social ecology has a particular perspective, and we see nature as everything, but we also see people, humanity, as having a particular place within nature. So really, for purposes of epistemology, social ecology speaks of first nature, which is nature as it has evolved and developed without the influence of people, and second nature, which is nature after people and culture have interacted with it and begun to shape it. Our understanding of nature also is not static, it's dynamic. For social ecology, nature is not just everything, it's also the history of and the development of phenomenon of species. So that evolution itself is really what we're talking about when we refer to nature, to first nature and second nature for that matter, in social ecology. We understand that nature is developmental. When we look at natural history, we see that life first emerged, if you accept the Darwinian model of evolution, that nature evolved, that life evolved from single-celled organisms, which developed in an ancient ocean. And those cells complexified. Nature is evolutionary, nature is dynamic, and nothing is lost. It's a cumulative process. So those single cells, of course, developed into multi-celled organisms, and those multi-celled organisms became more and more complex on the physical level. So we also see within this natural history a trajectory from simplicity to complexity, and ever greater complexity. And we understand that it's not a simple lineal process. Obviously, if you study the evolutionary record, there are tremendous fluctuations, there are extinctions, but overall, I would suggest to you that the trajectory of nature has been one of moving from simplicity to complexity. And as an aside, it's quite interesting because as individuals, we really reflect and embody that same process of evolution. If you think about it, we begin as single cells in the wombs of our mother, and we develop in amniotic fluid, which has the same pH as the ancient oceans that first gave birth to life. So it's really a pretty miraculous thing. And we are fairly miraculous beings in that sense that we could recapitulate the whole of evolution. And as I said, nothing is lost in evolution. It's really a process of development and building. So in epistemological terms, very important to realize when we talk about nature, we're talking about a process. And we're talking about a process in which differentiation plays a very important role. First nature, and you can't say there's one clear point at which first nature develops into second nature, but at some point, Homo sapiens sapien emerges, the hominid line emerges, we evolve, we develop over a relatively short period of time in evolutionary terms, about 3 million years at this point is what anthropologists indicate. And at some point, culture emerges out of nature, because as human beings, we have capacities that other species don't.